A voice from the grave. Well, not exactly, but it's close. Almost 1 year after former Beatle George Harrison died, Brainwashed, an album he left behind, has just made its way into stores. Thanks to his son Danny and former bandmate Jeff Lynne, who both join me now from London, England. Good morning, gentlemen. First, Jeff, I'll start with you. There might be some people watching who aren't familiar with the technical aspects of doing an album like this. Give us an indication of what George had left and what you guys needed to do. I mean, when we talk about production, literally, what did you guys need to do?
Basically, what we needed to do to the songs were complete. Whatever George had sung was complete. All we did was enhance little bits with some vocal backing, Danny and myself. Acoustic guitars, we helped and added a couple of those to some of the songs. And, you know, basically the songs were finished, but just weren't tidied up, like weren't made into a record that you would say is a record. They were basically demos, and George had asked me before he was, before he was really ill, to come and help and do it at my house, and we were going to do it. But then he got too sick, and he did actually say to me once on the telephone, "Now I don't want these too posh, you know. I want them like still like demos."
He left you instructions.
Yeah, he did. He left us instructions. He also left us things like string parts that he'd sung onto the tape for us to play, and Mark Mann wrote them into a concise piece of music from just the singing on the tape. And so we do have strings on there, but that's the only really the only sort of posh stuff on there, if you like. It's George with his guitars and his voice, and that's the main components of the record.
How difficult, Jeff, was it to make those decisions? How much pressure did you feel, being not only someone who produced the album, but a close friend and a collaborator of George's?
Well, on one hand, I felt equipped to do it because I knew George so well, and musically we were very much on the same wavelength, and I knew him, and Danny knew whatever I didn't think of, Danny would know. And, so Danny stopped me going overboard with anything, and which was a great help to have Danny there, because anything I might have, gone too far my way or made it sound like me, I didn't want it to sound like that. Danny didn't want it to sound like him. And we both wanted it to sound like George, and I think we achieved that.
Did you guys ever disagree in the studio over a decision?
For about 3 seconds.
Yeah, with the rubber hammer.
With the rubber hammer, and we had to work on Mouse Boy a bit, but other than that,
a bit.
Yeah. No, I don't think we did.
Not really.
If I had something that Jeff didn't agree with initially, after I'd explained it, we either, by the time I'd finished explaining it, realized that we were going to use it, or that I'd had a bad idea in the first place. So, the way we worked was it was either rubbish and we chuck it out, or it's really good and it keeps in. There was no compromising, and anything, it either sounded perfect like Dad for the record, or it was something that wasn't going to work and we didn't use it. So, we were very conscious about that, and we never had a disagreement. We always, within, a couple seconds really, had just worked out what the right thing for the record was.
Mm-hmm.
And it was pretty obvious what the right path that my dad and the record, should have taken.
I can't help but think that if you're following the instructions of someone who's passed on, you're recording his songs and listening to his voice, you must have felt him in the studio. You must have felt his presence.
Of course, yeah. At first, it was quite hard, and like the first couple of tracks, we were really kind of just treading new ground. And then once we'd done a couple, we felt George actually is with us, and there's his voice to prove it. So, we started to enjoy it much more, because there George was with us, and we were making the thing, and it sounded really good, and it started to sound great, and we were very happy, making all the tracks.
Danny, did you feel him there?
Yeah, I mean, whenever his music's around, there's always so much of him that's just been completely contained, I don't know, sustained in all of his tunes, you know, and I feel it when we do the rehearsals for this concert, and I feel them when we do, you know, when we were in the studio doing the additional recordings, you know, wherever his music goes, there is a very strong...
It's been almost a year since his death. You can't help but think that as his son, that this might in some way help you get through this.
What, being interviewed?
No, I'm thinking about doing the album.
Oh, right, yeah, no, the album was very...
I mean, I'm happy if the interview helps.
Yeah, no, yeah, we can talk later. The album was very cathartic for me. I think it was, you know, as I said, it was done at the right time, so it was... I dealt with a lot of this, you know, as it happened, and never really shied away from any of the reality of what's, you know, what's been happening in the last few years. And doing the recordings, it was, you know, it was great and wonderful, and it was really sad as well. And you know, now people, I play them the album, and some people who knew him, you know, they'll just cry hearing tracks on the record and look at me like I'm crazy because I'm not crying. And it's like, well, I've done all that, you know, and I went through it when we did the record, and it was a very, you know, positive thing for me to have done so soon after his death.